about him. I'm going to read the bio. Dr. Darren Leighton is an orthopedic surgeon specializing in knee and shoulder pathologies in sports medicine. He is a team physician for both USA hockey and ski teams. He is currently studying for his restorative anti-aging medicine fellowship. Darren and his wife Tamra, an RN, are truly people of strong Christian faith and passionate about helping others. They are both in the medical field and realize the amazing potential of what we have our hands on with Nerve2 activation. I have had the pleasure of getting to know Darren and Tamra over the last few months, and they're an absolute blessing to us and our family. They're a blessing to this business, to this industry, and I am so excited to have Darren on his first Sunday night training call. Darren, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Ah, there you are. Okay, we're going to start off with this. I asked Darren if I could ask this question because I know when I started my LifeVantage business, if somebody like Darren would have come on to do the training, I would have thought, how do I find someone like him? How do I build the courage to go speak to an orthopedic surgeon, to go speak to any medical person in the industry? And so what I wanted to ask Darren to share with all of you, because this is something I would have wanted to know, and I still want to know, is Darren, could you share with us from your perspective, what was it? How did Susie, your enroller, get your attention with this? And what was it that you saw that you think other people could use to reach out to individuals like yourself?
All right. Well, I think probably the best way to start would be to kind of talk about relationship. Susie and I had relationship. And through that, which was a work relationship, it was easier, I think, for her to approach me in a real non-threatening manner. I knew the information she was wanting me to look at was multi-level marketing, just because of looking at a few things. But honestly, that wasn't why I shied away. It was just I didn't have time. I just truly didn't have time. And without getting injured, which I believe is someday I'll think it's a blessing. I don't feel that way right now, but it was a blessing in disguise, in that I had the time then to really look at the studies, get to know some of the nuances about NRF2, NRF1, kind of how this applies, get a better understanding about oxidative stress, and has really kind of catapulted me onto this journey of now doing a restorative anti-aging fellowship, changing the direction of my orthopedic practice as far as trying to support people better preoperatively, postoperatively. But ultimately, for me, it was the science that won the day. Getting a chance to see it, having an opportunity to hear one of the very intense science presentations. So being able to kind of have that science put out there for me was huge. And then having time to digest it. One thing I'll give Susie credit for, she was persistent. She would give me 2-3 weeks and kind of pop in again and, hey, have you looked at that? And no, not yet, but I'm getting there. I'll do it when I can do it. And, but she kept there, didn't push so much that I got frustrated with her. But by getting back to me, I realized that she believes this is important. And when I had the time, it was like, well, let's take a look at this. Let's really spend some time looking at it. So for me, that was kind of the process of how I came around. And then once I realized what I had my hands on from the science standpoint, that's when I was kind of all in, like, this just makes too much good sense. I can't argue with the science.
That's fantastic. Before you begin on the training part, I just want to point something out to what you just said to everybody in case they missed it. Darren just repeated something that I said, is in that Susie's consistent follow-up. We've all heard the statistics. If you've been to an event, you hear the statistics of how little people follow up. Here's a perfect example of not too much. She gave him his space, gave him time, but still followed up. And if you ever have spoken to Maria Williams, she will tell you a very similar story about speaking to Dr. Mark Gordon. same thing. It was the consistency and the follow-up and just that relationship. And he eventually said, I knew that this woman was going to call me again on Monday because she told me she'd call me in 2 weeks Monday. I knew she was going to call me, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to look at this already. So thank you for pointing that out. I think that's helpful and interesting to a lot of people. And I'm going to turn this over to you for the science portion.
Great. So I wanted to talk about the new NRF2 study where they looked at the salt-induced vascular dysfunction. And understand, as an orthopedic surgeon, I don't typically look at cardiovascular studies, but with Protandim being involved, certainly the interesting parts that I've tweaked out of this from my standpoint was the fact that when they basically took the study hamsters as well as rats and divided them into the high sodium diet with and without Protandim, just after 2 weeks, when they compared the controls with the high salt alone, Protandim supplementation basically took care of the epithelium-dependent vasodilatation, allowing that response to be maintained. Fancy kind of medical stuff. Bottom line, vasodilatation or enlarging of the arteries is a controlled circumstance that our body does naturally. We have vasoconstriction with stress, and then we have vasorelaxation. And if our ability to control that is taken away, we can stay in a chronically restricted state. And that chronically restricted state leads to hypertension. In addition, if we're not having good oxidative stress control in our arteries, what's going to happen is we're going to have vascular changes to the endothelium that they're talking about here that were directly affected by Protandim. Those changes now make things happening in the artery static. One of the things that I was able to kind of take away from my initial module and my fellowship and kind of understanding, oxidative stress in the vascular system is that I think there's a huge shift that's kind of coming around in looking at cardiovascular disease, looking at plaque formation, and truly it being a chronic inflammation status in the vessels and their inability to respond to that chronic inflammation, oxidative stress. And this plays perfectly into that, pointing out that Protandim has direct effect on the blood vessels. The other thing that, from my standpoint in looking at this, they talked about the idea of mitochondria, and that there were some lower staining of oxidizing species for the mitochondria, some fancy wording that basically, when I look at that, what I see is that there's positive mitochondrial benefit out of Protandim for the endothelium. The oxidizing species of the mitochondria, as I understand it, would be breakdown or injury to the mitochondria, that you're seeing these oxidizing species. The free radicals damaging the mitochondria, hence leading to these oxidative species, is what I understand of that. So to me, that's encouraging that we're getting some mitochondrial benefit in that realm, having the Protandim helping with oxidative stress, reduction of free radicals. It would have been really interesting to know, and maybe this is going to be a follow-up study that they'll do, but the idea of the upregulation of glutathione and that 300%, it's huge in the oxidative stress realm, but it's also a chelator or a remover of heavy metals. So for people with mercury, lead, arsenic accumulations, it can detox them that way. And I'm just wondering, is that part of what is one of the big benefits here in the vessels, is the glutathione, the fact that it's upregulated as much as it is? It's not, all I got was the abstract, so I didn't get to see more of the paper. It's my understanding that the full paper isn't available. Couldn't pull it up at this time. But that would be one of the things that I wonder if they're going to be doing as some follow-up and doing some immunoassays and trying to just look at some of the particular enzymes that are a part of this process. they did look at the nitric oxide and how that plays in with nitroglycerin, as I remember from my medical school days, which you'll have to forgive me, that was 25 years ago. And interesting that was something that wasn't changed, as far as it still had its effect. So that is kind of my nutshell look at this. The exciting things I really took away were that for those people who are struggling with hypertension, those people who are struggling with vascular disease, I think this is just another good example of how we're getting a vascular benefit from Protandim. And I believe it's multifactorial. When you see the mitochondria, your benefits that you were seeing here, it's doing multiple things, and that it's taking care of those free radicals. So I don't know if you had anything else, Christy, specific that you wanted to discuss. I have some other things I could go over, but I don't want to kind of misuse my time.
Hey, Dr. Darren, it's Michelle Poe. I don't see Christy on here. I don't know if something happened that she went off. So if you want to just continue with what you were thinking, that would be a blessing.
Okay. So I kind of touched a little bit on the glutathione, and that was one of the things at my fellowship that really kind of brought a lot of this Protandim upregulation, glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase, and additional things in relation to this. A lot of what's kind of happening in our health world, and as we age, how we're struggling with health is hormonal imbalances, which glutathione is huge in basically getting the detoxification of hormones in our body taken care of. There's phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification that occurs, and glutathione deficiencies can lead to a lack of conversion from getting the initial breakdown of a hormone, when it's actually more of a potential cancer causing agent at that point, to then be broken down into something that the body can get rid of through the liver. Glutathione was huge in that. And that was news to me. I had kind of just lost that stuff as far as my understanding from medical school, since I hadn't been looking at it or thinking about it as an orthopedic surgeon. But then the other thing is when you look at being able to upregulate glutathione in the cell, the critical thing of that is when they're treating Parkinson's, when they're treating these other disease processes by trying to give people IV glutathione or somehow getting glutathione into the blood vessels, the reason that doesn't work is glutathione is actually a marker that our liver recognizes to pull toxins out of our body. So when glutathione finds a mercury in our brain cells, it can actually reduce that from something that only can be kept in fat, makes it something that can actually now dissolve in water, leave the brain, and the glutathione almost acts like it's holding its hand up as it goes by the liver saying, hey, here I am. And it pulls the glutathione, which is attached to that mercury or that arsenic or the lead, and removes that toxin through our bile. I had forgotten all that stuff. And to me, that was kind of a real wake-up call as to one of the alternate advantages of having upregulation of glutathione through Protandim and acting on the NRF2 pathway. So that I thought was just another positive as to why you could talk to somebody now with Parkinson's or some of these other neurodegenerative issues, where we have some thoughts potentially about aluminum playing into Alzheimer's. We have some thoughts about other heavy metals playing into some of these neurodegenerative issues. There's a potential that truly what's happening is the glutathione is going in and helping remove those heavy metals. Those heavy metals actually stop enzymes from working. And in that way, if you can get it out, you can potentially have the healing of the actual cell itself, the pathways restored. So that to me was real exciting and is firing me up to actually spend a little more time and very thankful that I'm doing kind of the fellowship that I am. So that was a big one for me.
So, Darren, maybe to kind of wrap up a little bit would you talk about how you use or recommend or how you use Protandim in your practice and with patients?
So prior to having the understanding about Protandim, I was always giving people antioxidants along with magnesium, zinc, to help in the healing process, support the body during a high stress, high oxidative stress scenario. I didn't think of it as oxidative stress at the time, but that's truly what I was doing, and supporting them with vitamin C and vitamin D, and having them work on their diet and all those things. So what I've shifted to is not pushing the C and the D and the vitamins as much, and saying, you know what, I think I have a better option for you, which is actually giving me those indirect benefits from upregulation with Protandim for nerve 2, helping the mitochondria for healing with nerve 1, and then still supporting with magnesium and zinc, calcium, and the things that are the building blocks that they need. So I talk to them about trying to do something at least a month before surgery, and then I like to do at least 3 months after surgery. Now, at that point, it's to them, as far as what they're experiencing, my hope is they're going to go, wow, there's more than what I anticipated with this whole scenario of surgery. I'm realizing I have some other things that are improving. My biggest struggle in my practice right now is just having some limitations as to how much I can talk. As an employed physician, I have some limitations as to what I can and can't do. So I've just been putting it out there, giving people opportunity, and trying to educate as best I can so that they understand the benefits. I think if people can truly understand and take the time, to me, this is a no-brainer, but obviously that's because I understand it. The hard part is educating.
There's so much more we could go into. There's just so much goodness here. I want to respect everyone's time. It's just 9 o'clock, a little bit after. Darren, is there anything else that you want to end with, that you want to share with people as they continue to go out and share this information with other people?
In talking, one of the things you had pointed out that Susie did well was the follow-up. The other thing she did well is she did get a third-party validation, Dr. Gordon, to actually spend the time talking with me. I think we had an hour on a Saturday where we just kind of walked through. He talked to me about his clinical experience, some of the struggles he had with how he was bringing this into his practice and what that meant, and talked a little bit about the science and third-party works. And I think in the scenario with me as a physician, that was kind of the final linchpin that brought it all together, of going, okay, I get it. I can see this. I can see how it kind of fits in, and understanding how somebody had, although not being in orthopedics, he was a cardiologist, but seeing kind of that process of what he went through and how he kind of put it into his clinical experience. That was a thing that really kind of tipped me. So I shout out for third parties whenever you can.
That